AFC North Talk. What is up? It's your boy Ace Boogie. Bengals Browns this week. So I figured let's do a video more in depth of whether we think the Bengals can beat the Browns. Obviously, the Browns have been a thorn in Joe Burrow's side since he's kind of stepped into the league. Even though his first start against the Browns, he actually had a really good game. We talk about that's the one where he set the record in terms of the passing attempts, 37 for 61. 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He kind of balled in that one. Followed that up, but the next one, 35 of 47, 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Then that's when it started to go a little downhill. He had 28 for 40, 70% completion game. However, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 282 yards. That was an ugly game. Then you talk about the next one after that. Not as bad, but 25 of 35, 71 percentage completion, 232 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then we talk about some of the recent ones. He just had the one last year where he was playing week one, 14 to 31 for 82 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, obviously, with that one, that's the worst one. Joe Burrow wasn't itself. It was week one, but Joe Burrow has not been able to really be super effective against the Browns. That's the kind of theme here, right? The thing for me, though, is he's been really good this season. Like Joe is playing at an MVP level. He's leading the NFL in passer rating. He's leading in all of these categories, and he's having a great season. And it seems like the Browns are kind of reeling at this point in time, right? So if there was ever a time for Joe Burrow to really put a stamp on this, and we know as Bengals fans, Joe's looked at this matchup and has tried to figure this team out. Now, obviously, last year, Browns have a new defensive coordinator. It's a slightly new defense, not something used to what Joe was figuring out. Whereas the year before that, he had just figured out the Joe Woods defense, right? Was able to exploit that, was able to finally get some success. Then you got to think about it in that game. The Bengals were missing some receivers, and Trent Irwin just had like a rando good game in that one. Jamar Chase was able to get the touchdown. So I think in this one, you start to see some of this stuff come together. He's now seen this defense for a year. I'm pretty sure Joe's been looking at the film on that, and that's the type of guy Joe is. Like, you might catch him off guard the first time with a new defensive look, but generally he starts to evolve and kind of get into it. And I also wonder about the 12 personnel. That's something completely different from what the Bengals have shown in the past. And then you also talk about the offensive line that's changed and upgraded. Orlando Brown Jr. You also have Amarius Mims on the other side. So these are 2'6'8", 370-pound guys that can be in there protecting Burrow, doing this thing. The one thing that I do worry about, though, is inside pressure, which Myles Garrett was able to Euro step over Ted Karras last year and get inside for a sack. So that's something that I am worried about. But I think for the most part, I mean, Jamar Chase is playing some of the best ball of his career right now. And we know, even though Jamar Chase has not said anything, and I think that that's smart for him to not say anything, not give these guys headline material, I think that that means that Jamar Chase is in for a big game. I think, especially no Denzel Ward, even with Denzel Ward, the way that Jamar Chase is playing right now as one of the top receivers in the NFL, I think there's nothing more than he wants to do in this game other than perform well against the Browns. I think that that's really on his list this year. I can tell you that he was not fond of the Cleveland Browns corners a few years ago. Now, I think that he respects Denzel Ward for sure, but I think that there's definitely some bad blood there when it comes to Jamar Chase versus the Browns. We know that he does not like Greg Newsome whatsoever. Greg Newsome, he wants to torch Greg Newsome. So if they are matched up, that's something that I would look at. The other thing, too, is Jamar Chase has played a lot in the slot this season, more than he has in the past. He moves in and out of the slot. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. And when Joe and Jamar are on the same page, it's kind of nasty. And then I think, the 12 personnel coupled with the better offensive line, coupled with the fact that you have T. Higgins on the other side as well. I think T. Higgins could also have a big game as well, because T. Higgins also does not like the Browns. So all of these factors, I think, go in Cincinnati's way. However, it's really up to the defense to help them out, right? And it's up to Joe to not turn the ball over because he's had really good games against them and he's had really bad games. Let's just keep it a buck. But I think that this could finally be the season that the Bengals are finally able to try to beat the Browns. And I think it really hinges on Joe Burrow, how he's playing this season. Can he continue that? And it's a narrative. I mean, the narrative is deserved because they haven't beat this team in Cleveland since 2017. Although Joe has only been around since 2020 until now, it is what it is. Like I know, like I would definitely look at that game where the Bengals had everything wrapped up for the Super Bowl year. Like they weren't really playing in that game, and I know Cleveland was playing their starters, but that's neither here nor there. The Nick Chubb thing I think is somewhat dangerous, but the fact that he's on a pitch count, I just don't see him getting 25, 30 carries, like the stuff that we've seen from him before. And then you also have to take into account, is he the same Nick Chubb? Is he a guy that, even the best version of Nick Chubb wasn't really a pass blocker? So are they even going to have him on the field on third downs on a pitch count? I think that helps the Bengals out. But the other thing is the Bengals defensive line has gotten healthy, and the Bengals in general are healthy. Now, the Browns are getting healthy too as well. But the Bengals defensive line is healthy. They are very aware of Nick Chubb and what he can do. And I think the way that they will play this team, especially when you talk about Amari Cooper being there as well, is that they're going to load the box. I think they're going to load the box. I think if you can get pressure on Deshaun Watson, I think it's been shown this season at least that if you're able to do that, the Cleveland Browns offense turns into a pumpkin. So if you can do that in this game, that's going to help you out as well. But if Deshaun Watson cooks you, that's nasty. That's super nasty, especially the season that he's having right now. That's very nasty. It would be extreme cause for concern, in my opinion, if that continues. But I think that this could be the year. Like, if the Bengals aren't able to do this, the season is cooked. Because coming back from 2-5 is just a little too crazy for me. The way that the division is opening right now, when you're talking about a lot of these teams starting to tighten up from the top. Right now, Bengals only back, 2.5 games from the top of this division, and that depends on how things go this weekend. So if the Bengals can get a win against a divisional opponent, that's going to be major, especially with Baltimore kind of having that division record of 1-0 right now, which is causing them to be at the top. I think you got to see what's there. Bengals got to start a streak, man. They haven't been able to start much of a win streak outside of one game. So we'll see if they can actually get to 2 games here against the Browns. Browns have lost 4 games in a row. They're reeling right now. No Amari Cooper. They do have Jerry Jeudy playing well, but the Bengals have some good secondary players or some good secondary play as of late. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this. But I think, make sure that Jerry Jeudy can't beat you as well. That's another major one. But if they can get to the quarterback, get to Deshaun Watson, force Deshaun Watson to throw some ill-advised interceptions or something like that, I think the Bengals are finally able to get out of this one. And I think it's really just based on the circumstances because Cleveland right now is spiraling. The Bengals were close to spiraling, but they're starting to kind of steady their feet and try to move forward. So we'll see what they do this weekend, but I really like the Bengals' chances of getting this dub. Make sure that you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Browns fans, Bengals fans, whatever. It's the Battle of Ohio. Make sure you represent in the comments. I am Ace Boogie, a.k.a. at New Stripe City on Twitter. Make sure that you check out all of our content here on AFC North Talk.